Good morning and shalom aleichem, chaverim, wonderful chevra, Baruch Hashem, people in person, people online. And we'll start today with our typical introduction of number one, that the anonymous donator for this whole series, he should have bracha, he should have mazel and hatzlacha. And as well, one thing that I always have in mind is Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach can collectively take the energy of the shiur and give it where it's needed for Am Yisrael. Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach. So, first of all, as well, change and transitioning, das tachtoin chitzoni, that we've come in from wherever we have come from. And we have stepped into this space, and we have stepped into this space together. So to take a moment and just to look around in the makom that we are in, and as well to look around with the people that we are with, das tachtoin chitzoni. And as we do that, just have a sense that we are in this world of olam. We're in a space, olam. Shana it's a particular time right now. So it's olam and shana. And then nefesh is we turn our gaze inside. Nefesh is to do with where I am right now. So just take note, physiologically, we can ask ourselves, Ma ani margish begufani? What am I feeling in my body right now? And just take a quick moment, to do a body scan. Just ask the question, a body scan, a non-judgmental observation. Non-judgmental observation. Ma ani margish, what am I feeling in my body right now in the present moment? Non-judgmental observation. And shift into the next question. Ask the question and become silent and non-judgmentally observe. Ma ani margish, what am I feeling right now in the present moment? What emotions right now? And we can ask one more question. Ma ani choshev, what am I thinking? And notice non-judgmentally any thoughts that may arise, if there is any, and if there's not, there isn't, and it's all okay. In this setting, as we have said before, there's no good, bad, right, wrong, there just is. Ma ani choshev, what am I thinking? And what we are wanting for us to realize is that you and I, all of us, we can shift into a different state. And that state is a very simple state. To start off by knowing das tachtoin is that I have a nefesh. I'm not my nefesh. It's part of my experience. And there are the three modes within the nefesh. And stage one is to become aware of that. It's to become aware of that. It's to become real with that. And that shift within itself is absolutely profound for every element of the human experience. One particular tzaddik, Saba Schwartz, so when Saba met the Sandlar, so the Sandlar wanted to teach Saba this mahalach, the mahalach that we're sharing in a different, slightly different formulation, in a slightly different language, but to come to a state of das. And when Saba learned what we are learning, the fact that Hachnan Havdalah, the fact that I can observe my thoughts, so he was happy, and that's when he actually left. That's when he left. He always had very, very close ties with the Chabura in Tel Aviv, but that's when he left. So everybody knew that's when he left. He had a conversation with the Sandlar, who was one of the Nistarim, he was one of the hidden Tzaddikim in Tel Aviv. So I once asked Saba Schwartz, Rabbi Yosef Schwartz, I asked him, I said, why did you leave then? And he says, because I wanted to be able to love everybody and everything. And I knew that something was getting in the way. Once I realized it was my thinking, now I accomplished that. I don't need, that's what I wanted. That's what I wanted. It's true, I could reach higher dargas. It's very, very, very true. But in that point in my life, that's what I wanted. And Chazda Hashem, I sat with the Rav, I sat with the Chabura, and once I really owned this darga, that now I could love, and anybody who met Saba Schwartz, one of the tzaddik from Netanya, anybody who met Saba Schwartz experienced this palpable love. Really, it was something very, very profound. So Baruch Hashem, this is something really important to us and for us. So last week we started by introducing a couple of the repetitive questions that came up. One question is not repetitive, but I found it to be very fundamental. And then there was a number of questions which were more repetitive. And somebody brought up a question a few months ago and brought up a question again based on what we discussed last week, or I think it was the week before. So the first question, which is more fundamental, is a question by a person in America, and they have said, and I know them, they know me, they've said that a lot of the time, pretty much all the time, anything that we're sharing always goes back to more fundamental principles. And we know there's a derech of avodah, and we know that within our derech of avodah right now we're in architecture of the soul, but we know, for example, we have the beliefs that we've spoken about, the beliefs that Hashem made a beautiful world and wants us to live a beautiful life in His beautiful world. Next is that Hashem Yisbarach wants us to believe in our own good and wants us to know that we have the koach to create the life that we want. And the next is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is good. We have to believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's good, and we have to believe that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as Gemara Makot Daf Yud tells us, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to support us in the life that we want. And Rabbi Singer would say that these three fundamental beliefs give us a deep quality in how we live. It betters the way that we live. They're the first beliefs. Then we go into the 4 tikkunim for our generation. Again, not going into it be'iyah now, but just to mention it. And the first is physical and mental health. When we look out at the world, we need to really work and own our physical and mental health. The next shift, the next tikkun in our generation is hod netzach and yisod, gratitude, hope and resilience. The third is collaboration and contribution and collaboration. And the 4th tikkun in our generation is the deep respect for Gashmius, recognizing Gashmius not as an obstacle to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but actually the vehicle to reveal HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the world. Then we shift into the divine plan. Then we have the architecture of the soul. Then we have the Arbi Yesodus. And then we have fluid integration, all the exercises to create, hopefully, long-lasting, definitive change. Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach. So he asked a question. He said, what's the source of the derech of avodah? Is there something more fundamental that gives rise to this whole derech of avodah? And the answer is yes. There's 4 fundamental questions that really we should ask. And the beauty, one of the beautiful nakudas by Rabbi Singer is that everything ties back to Bereshis. And it's a whole set of talks within itself, but showing all of the human condition within Bereshis. Everything that the human being experiences is found within Bereshis, is found within the beginning of the parasha. We're not going into it now. It's a whole set of shiurim within itself, but just to know that. And there's 4 fundamental questions that after Chet Adam now we are to ask. And I'm not going to go into what I was about to say, but the 4 questions are as following. Number 1, the recognition that I exist. I exist. After Chet Adam, we realize we exist. Adam and Chava recognize their nakedness. They recognize, they have a self-awareness. They exist. The second question is, once we start thinking about my existence, we come to realize I exist within a system. I exist within a misgeret, a structure. There's olam, there's shana, there's makom. So I exist within a structure. So there's I exist and I exist within a structure. Then what starts to happen? You have context. I exist and I exist within a structure. Now there's context, which comes to give us an experience of what we call pain and pleasure. Again, a whole conversation within itself, but it gives us now this experience of pain and pleasure. And the 4th is, what are the ingredients to deal with pain and pleasure? How do we come to deal with pain and pleasure? Obviously, we want to be on the side more of pleasure than pain. But these 4 fundamental questions are really at the bedrock of Yiddishkeit in a prat and a klal. And everything that comes out of Yiddishkeit on a certain respect, whether we're speaking about Tanakh, whether we're speaking about Shas and Poskim, Torah Sheba'al Peh, who I am, what I am within, the nakuda of pain and pleasure, that's the feelings I feel, and how do I stay on the side of pleasure more than pain? And if I have to meet pain, how do I deal with it? If I have to meet suffering, how do I hold it? This is the important, I would say, deeper yesodus of where our whole derech of avodah is coming from. That we have a derech of avodah, and the fundamental questions or the fundamental investigations come down to these 4 points. That architecture of the soul is I exist, and there's pain and pleasure, how do I hold it? Then we have the derech of divine plan, I'm in something, and the ingredients, the arbi yesodus, I'm now sent out the garden, and after shlichus, I have to figure out how to make everything better. How do I stay on the side of pleasure more than pain? Adam and Chava now experience pain in childbirth. There's pain and pleasure, but there's tremendous pleasure as well. By the way, why it speaks only about the childbirth and not about the pleasure? Because everything was meant to be pleasure. Gan Eden is the garden of pleasure. Eden is the garden of pleasure. The root is the same root, Eden, in regards to Eineg. So what was odd to us is pain. Whole conversation within itself. So that nakuda is an important nakuda to take into consideration. And there was one more question that a number of people asked, and that was this nakuda of ruach hakodesh. And I would say this is very, very fitting to where we are right now in our text, as we mentioned. And what we want to start to understand is that we need to be having a conversation, which we're not now. We're just going to bring in some points about ruach hakodesh and nevuah, but we are meant to shift into, we're meant to evolve as a species into a new level of existence. And this new level of existence is to include ruach hakodesh and nevuah. We've got psukim about it, we've got Chazal, and what we know is that a lot of it starts before Moshiach comes. It's not that, Moshiach will come and then we will have ruach hakodesh and nevuah. It starts beforehand. If you look at the Sfarim HaKadoshim, it starts beforehand, and more than that, elements of ruach hakodesh can always be had all throughout the exile. And we want to develop what we call ruach hakodesh and nevuah because that's the ABCDs of Tikkun HaMidos. Now, what I would say is that we need a whole series within itself to look through all the sources, to look through all the texts, to show that this is something very, very rational. It sounds odd, but it's something very, very rational. When we speak about ruach hakodesh and we speak about nevuah, for sure the first dargas, the first gradients, conscious movements of ruach hakodesh are practical, and probably you have experienced it before. What's the major challenge that we face? We don't have these conversations. And because we don't have these conversations, ruach hakodesh seems to be something very high, very far away from us. And what I wanted just to share was that in Yiddishkeit, we actually have a pretty clear ladder of what ruach hakodesh is. And pretty much we could see quite clearly who holds what, where, when, and how. It's not something which is so crazy. And I just want to start off by explaining why is it important? Why is what we call ruach hakodesh, in whatever definition we're about to give it, why is it important? Why do we need it? And this is very much to do with our conversation of Das. This is why we're presenting this material. Number one, there's 2 shifts, and this Yid was asking a question from a number of months ago. We brought from the Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac Shapira explained this, Rabbi Yosef Singer, the Tasha Rebbe brings this, and that is, there's 2 shifts. There's a shift where the Torah was given, and we're using an energy from when the Torah was given until a certain point. That, so to speak, there's a change that occurs when we then start drawing from Yemoseh Mashiach. We start drawing from an energy from the future. And what we want to understand is that it's a very delicate conversation. It's a very delicate conversation and it needs Ian. But one of the big shifts is as following. Typically, what the Chiddush of Torah is, one of the big Chiddushim of Torah is that it's meant to move us from what we call a vertical society to a horizontal society. What does that mean? That in a typical structure of power, there is a king, a queen, there's leaders, and that level of power then starts high, and as you go lower and lower, the base becomes wider and wider, and less people have power. So you have a few at the top and lots at the bottom, like a pyramid. However, in Yiddishkeit, that was never fully the goal. In Yiddishkeit, the goal, one of the major goals of Yiddishkeit, and the big chidushim of Yiddishkeit, is a horizontal, what we can call a horizontal society. You have a vertical society, a horizontal society. What does that mean? Horizontal society is when there is a bris. What's the bris? The bris is what we call Torah. And it's where everybody is expected by choice, hopefully by choice, to fit into the bris. And when we fit into the bris, every single person takes radical responsibility. Every single person takes full responsibility and ownership. And they don't ask, and we've said this many times before, so this is going a little bit deeper into words that I've said before. They don't ask, Magia li, my rights, my rights, my rights. They ask, what's my responsibility? What's my achrayus here? What's my responsibility? That is a conscious horizontal society. We want to be a group of people. We are a nation. The nation of Israel is a nation of radical responsibility. The nation of Israel is a nation of caring. As we have said before, if you look at all of the chevra that started, all of the thought leaders in the world of psychology, psychiatry, and mindfulness, pretty much all of them are Yidden, all of them are Jews. What does it come to show us? As we have said time and time again, countlessly throughout the years, we are the nation of caring. We are the nation of radical responsibility. And what we're told is that every single person, Tanakh tells us, every single person will have their experience of godliness. When we can shift into a state of das, we can open up what's ruach hakodesh. We can open up to higher thinking. Typically, what that higher thinking and neshamadika thinking leads us to a place of what? It leads us to a place of how can I better your life? Simple. That's the shift between the nefesh and the neshama. The nefesh is magiali, magiali, magiali. The world of das and the world of neshama is achrayas. How can I better your life? I know I can ask that question because I'm going to trust, because I'm the nation of vulnerability, that you will better my life. And this is where ruach hakodesh comes in. Ruach hakodesh is this shifting consciousness. It's this shifting consciousness. That number one, this goes very, very far back, and it's not poshut that it's this Mechaber that speaks about this in such a clear way.
What is that?
I'm going to share what this is. I'm going to bring just to speak out a couple of Makoros very quickly as we go into this. So in Mar Nevuchim, the Rambam, now one nakuda of the Mar Nevuchim, and Avraham Abulafia saw this in Mar Nevuchim, the Rambam wanted already to create a shift, moving from a vertical society to a horizontal society. Again, it's moving. That doesn't mean we're not going to have a Moshiach. That could be an individual. It doesn't mean we're not going to have a based in. It doesn't mean that. But we look, where does the king come from? It comes from the people. You can't run away from this. In Torah, in Tanakh, there's such a sophisticated approach. Same with the Sanhedrin. Everybody has to be heard. So the Rambam seemed to be, according to Rav Avraham Abulafia and according to Rav Avram Yurovich, I heard this from a student of Rav Avram Yurovich, that already the Rambam wanted to create a horizontal society. And for example, in the second parak of Mar Nevuchim, Mem Hey, the Rambam speaks about 11, 12 different levels of ruach hakodesh. And the first few levels of ruach hakodesh, listen to this. The first level 1 is divine assistance. Divine assistance. That means, as Reb Moshe Shapira would explain, as I mentioned, I wrote a whole book on all of the shitot that I found and the distinguishing factors between the shitot and the different darachim, and within the darachim what they were trying to say, whether they were saying it clearly or not. You've got divine assistance. You've got, for example, another darga is when one hears a voice in their head. They hear a voice in their head, an answer to something.
Divine assistance means around?
Pardon? Divine assistance is outside. So I'll give you a moshel. Somebody in the Chabura, there's somebody in the Chabura, we've been going through some of these different inyonim. So Lamashal, I'll give you a prime example. He was davening, he davens in a Beis HaMedrash where there's an individual who constantly bangs their foot against the table and makes the table go boop, 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 boop. And his seat is next to him and it drives him absolutely mad. So what happened? A couple of days ago, he got into a state of das, he got into a state of hishtava, shavisi Hashem lenegdi tamid hishtava, sachnan avdala, and he really let go. He really got into a state, non-judgmental observation, and let go, and smiled, and just said, oh, hakodesh baruch hu, okay, hakodesh baruch hu. Literally, immediately, he stopped banging the table, his foot was still moving, but it was on the floor. Like that. That is, according to Reb Moshe Shapira, this is the first darga of ruach hakodesh. Now, it sounds very, very odd, because a lot of people may turn around and say, oh, well, I've experienced that before. Yes, you have. Like, what's the chiddush? Yes. Or, for example, the next is where we hear insight, we get insight, we hear voices inside our head. We hear voices inside our head. And Tachlis, the Heilige Rambam goes on to list another number of different dargas. And what I'd like to share, just for example, is that I can't prove this. I've asked a lot of Gedolei Torah and Tzaddikim. I can't prove this. I don't know if somebody has seen this inside. But Lamashal, if you open up Mishlei Bir Agra, so Mishlei Bir Agra in a number of places. Mishlei and Bir Agra, I've written down just two. For example, Tet Vav Zayin, and as well Tet Zayin Daled. Both places he speaks about the second darga. I know that he's speaking about the second darga because I asked Reb Moshe Shapira. He's speaking about the second darga of ruach hakodesh. So the Gra, Reb Chaim Volozhin and the Gra, they have already teachings that yes, that when you have insight that comes from your leiv, when you hear that voice that comes from your leiv, that's b'china of ruach hakodesh. So you could be walking along and a natural thing drops into your head, or you think of something, you get something that you were thinking about. There's a sefer called Emunah and Bitachon, which is an older sefer. He brings the same idea. Not the Chazon Ish. Brings the same idea. This is from the school, for example, of the Gra, which I will say comes from the Nistarim. If you understand the Derech HaVaveda, everything we're sharing pretty much is in here. Then, for example, you have Rabbi Nachman. In Rabbi Nachman, Lamashal, this is level 3 of the Rambam. I'm not, again, very, very important. I'm not saying that all these dargas feed back into the Rambam. I'm just giving an example where I've noticed something in one text, and then in several other texts, you have a very similar idea. So, for example, in Rabbi Nachman, in Torah 156, Rabbi Nachman speaks about ruach hakodesh. This is the third darga. The third darga of what the Rambam, the third or fourth darga of what the Rambam is speaking about, when you are speaking out and you hear another voice. Again, very interesting. You're speaking out, you're doing his baidudus. So Rabbi Nachman says there, Leiv Tahor, Barali, that when you're speaking out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you hear voices within your head. That voice is not a sign of craziness. Everybody hears voices inside their head. Based on your Tikkun Hamidos is the quality of what you hear. You have, for example, in Sharei Kedusha. Now, what's interesting, Sharei Kedusha in the third part of Sharei Kedusha Zayin, Sharei Kedusha Zayin, the fourth or fifth darga of the Rambam is the first darga that Reb Chaim Vital brings. So Reb Chaim Vital's first darga is the fourth or fifth. Why? Because he expected you. There's something called Derech Eretz Kadmon L'Torah. Derech Eretz is Shavisi. Whereas the Rambam's coming to tell us that the first darga is called Bechina of Ruach HaKodesh. the fourth or fifth darga is the first darga by Reb Chaim Vital. What we're trying to share is the third one is a far deeper. It's a or voices inside your head.
That's the second one.
There's as well the third one is more deeper, which is as well based on the derech of the Baal Shem Tov. So what we're trying to show here is that we have a maslul. All we're trying to show, obviously, we've got Mesilas Yesharim based on Gemara Avodah Zarah, Chaf, page 20. We have many other texts that list out, and what we're trying to show here, Chevra, and this is the crux, this is trying to answer this question. What we're trying to show is we have a sophisticated approach to how we hold human experience in context to keeping Torah and mitzvahs. And what we want is the more that we work on ourselves. And the reason why this is so important is because when you are working on yourself and you're shifting from your nefesh to your ruach and neshama, typically you move from a place of me to us. Me to we and I to us. And this as well is found, even though it's not called Dargas of Ruach hakodesh, but one of the teachers who was a student of Rav Ashlag, Rav Yeshua Pinchasi in Bnei Brak, he would say there's 4 Dargas by Rav Ashlag. Receiving, to receive like a little baby. And as an adult, I may need to receive. For example, as some of you know, I wasn't well this week. Pretty much, I'm pretty independent anyway. But if I really wasn't well and I was in bed, the problem is even now I think I'm still not 100%. But if I was actually a good little boy and I listened to my mother and she says go to sleep, I did last night. I listened to my mummy last night and I went to bed at 10 o'clock. I slept very well. But the nakuda of receiving to receive, that if I was in bed and I've been in bed before, I just have to be looked after like a baby. There's nothing wrong with that. That's part of the human condition. We're gifting people opportunity to look after us. Then you've got receiving to receive, then you've got giving to receive. When I give something and I get something back, schar and einesh. Rambam, Hilchos Tshuva, schar and einesh. Then you've got giving to give, where I give, but I feel good. I don't need something from the outside world. Look at that. I felt good, I give. And there's nothing wrong with that as well. People like to miss dargas. You have to give l'shem shamayim where you don't feel anything good about it. No, just give. Because most people won't give. Give and feel good. Get high on your own supply. Feel good. Egocentric. Yes. Feel good. I gave. I gave and I feel good I gave. That is good. That's a darga. And then you've got the highest darga, atzilus, which is receiving to give. Receiving to give. So it's receiving to receive, giving to receive, giving to give, and receiving to give. And these dargas are so important, my friends, because when we can make shifts and we can move just from the horizontal to the vertical to the horizontal, this is where we are up to. We're in a generation where there's such intense networking. There's globalization. We are shifting into a horizontal society. We're shifting into a horizontal society. We're moving away from a vertical society. And one of the tzaddikim, one of the tzaddikim in just outside Bet Shemesh, he was giving a shir, and he was saying how all of the Arizal is trying to make us shift. It's trying to make this shift where we could experience deep achtus. What does the Arizal say when we come to daven? That we should makabel upon ourselves, v'ahavta l'recha kamocha. Why? Because again, we want to shift into a horizontal society. And that doesn't take away from a Moshiach, and that doesn't take away from a Beis Din, it doesn't take away from leadership.
Why not?
Pardon?
There's a hierarchy, then there's not.
Because the hierarchy is respecting the fact that it's not a pyramid system. We need leadership. Correct. But it's in context too, not only. This is what I was saying. It's not just a pyramid system where you have your leader and it's tyrancy, it's everyone's left out. In Yiddishkeit, no, even the lowest of the low are included and need to be included.
Can they function at the same time? A pyramid?
They all could be functioning on the same time, but the ikka is that we are what we call a nervous system. We function as a body. Everyone's working together. Everybody has their space. Every person is respected for what they have to offer. Nobody's left out. But that comes with maturity. That comes with the ability, Khalil v'chas, that we shouldn't abuse our power. And what I would say is the Baal Shem Tov, Maggid of Mezrich already changed this, but the derech of the Nistarim and the derech of the Baal Shem Tov very, very much wanted this. By the Gra, the derech of the Gra very, very much wanted this. And I can track back and I can show you. By the Nistarim, we know by the Nistarim, the Baal Shem Tov, and by the Baal Shem Tov and the Gra and the Baal Shem Tov learned from the same people. Their Mahalchim slightly changed. One went more into the derech Hashem, the divine plan, understanding the divine plan. The other one, typically, we say the Baal Shem Tov typically went more into the architecture of the soul, the das material. And there needs to be a yichud today, obviously. To be healthy, we need to have that yichud and understand it in context. Even Simsum Kupshutai and Eno Kupshutai is the same idea. This is the same idea. It's funny because you would think it's the opposite in the explanation of it. You would think the one that belongs, so to speak, to the derech of the Gra should be the Baal Shem Tov, and the one that's the derech of the Baal Shem Tov should be the Gra. But that's nishta here, nishta there right now. It's just proving the point, kapshutai. But what happened by the Baal Shem Tov? The Baal Shem Tov, by the Nistarim, they went out to people. There was never a Rebbe. Baal Shem Tov never was a Chassid. There was never a Rebbe. There was a Rosh Chabura, but the Rosh Chabura was in context with everyone else, and they went out to people. It was going out, it was going out, it was going out, it was going out. It was mixing, it was going from town to town. Maggid of Mezrich, with his wisdom, saw there needed to be, in order to create this shift, there needed to be some sort of leadership, and he created something called Hasidus. Hasidus didn't come from the Baal Shem Tov. Baal Shem Tov was a Nista. And that's why you find by Talmidei Baal Shem Tov, on a certain respect, they never changed. They never changed the Mahalach. They never fully followed the Maggid of Mezrich. Again, a shir within itself. But this is to do with where we are up to in this text. That we want everybody. We want Achdus. And we have to be led to Achdus. That leading to Achdus means that we have to change the way we perceive. We have to move out of nefesh into consciousness, into the state of das. And when we could move into the state of das and listen and receive from the neshama, and somehow, and it's mamash not easy, somehow massage all of these teachings into our nefesh, especially when our nefesh has its own conversation. No, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do the other. No, you tried to tell the nefesh, listen nefesh, let's try and work on kedusha and tahara, let's try. No, I want to eat now. I don't care about your... It takes real conversation. It takes an avodah. Avodas Hashem, it takes avodah. It really does. When we're faced, with little kids running around or older kids and they're doing silly things, and inside it's like your nefesh is telling you, but what you just have to do is let them be. How do you deal with that? So we're constantly wanting to be in a state of presence where I can choose how I interact with my next moment to breed more of horizontal relationship, not just vertical. We need the vertical. We need the leadership. Rabbi Nachman, by the way, where did he come from? Primarily, Rabbi Nachman was following his Elter Zayda. He was following a derech of Avodah where it was very much about the horizontal society. And he speaks about the tzaddik, but everybody knows that when Rabbi Nachman is speaking about the tzaddik, he's speaking about the tzaddik in you. He's speaking about the tzaddik. You look at Rabbi Nassan, he's speaking about the tzaddik in you. These are very real conversations. And I think that the way we live today, we are subconsciously, whether we are aware of it or not, we're subconsciously shifting from a vertical society to a horizontal society. This was a whole derech of the chiddush of Yiddishkeit, which easily could be missed. There's one more nakuda as a hagdama here, which I think, again, it's just very important as we go into this text, because we could so easily miss it, and the words on the page can just be words on pages that we are just reading, Achdus, nice, Achdus, and we can miss all of this. And I just want a shout out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Thank you that you're giving me right now the reshus to be a kli that I can share. My mind's been very, very mebulbal over the last couple of days. So thank you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Can I ask a related question to what was just said?
Yes, go for it.
So Rav Nassan says that whenever Rav Nachman talks about the tzaddik, he's referring to the tzaddik in each person. Would Rav Nassan say the same thing about Mashiach? Is Mashiach there's one person who's going to be the king, or is Mashiach is the Nekudas Mashiach and within each person that?
It's a very good question. Is the Nakuda of Moshiach just is it you, not just, shouldn't say that's disrespectful. Is the Nakuda of Moshiach the Nakuda within you? Is it a person? So classically we say it's a person. Classically we say it's a person. However, it's important to note as well, there are a number of texts, Talmidim of the Balatan, Talmidim of the Arizal, and as well certain texts. There's one chassid from the Balatanya that brings this, that it could be a state of consciousness that we first need to get into. We mentioned this, I think last week we mentioned this here. Could be that it's not when is Moshiach coming, is when are we coming. That dimension, it's dimensions. Did we mention that here? Yeah. When are we coming? It's already here. All of these dimensions, the Nakuda of Olam Haba, it's a dimension that's here. When we collectively shift our state of consciousness, we open up to something else. But the shift, the evolution of humanity, as well as Am Yisrael that's going to take place, will be one of a non-abuse. Non-abuse. So if there is a Moshiach, which is a person, if there is a Sanhedrin and a Melech, which is a person, it'll be non-abuse, and it will be this Nakuda where everything is shared out. So the answer is classically yes, we say there will be one person. However, according to the Mekubalim and what I heard from my teachers, that there will be, so to speak, that we will become a nervous system. We will become a nervous system, but that's very dependent on our Kedusha. It's very dependent on our Tahara. It's very dependent on being Shomer Torah mitzvahs. Very dependent. And we can do it, and we need each other. We need each other. We need each other. There's different parts of the body, as we know. And some people are like the head, and some people are like the arm, and some people are like the foot, some people are like the toenail. Just the way it is, but everything works together. And a cell doesn't know where a cell is going to go until it goes there. Does that speak to you? Yeah? So, what we want to share here is that we are in an amazing place, Chevra. We're in an amazing place. And right now, we are experiencing a katnus. We know we could experience a katnus. We're experiencing a katnus. People want more. Why is everyone going crazy for Pnimis HaTorah? Katnus, smallness. We're experiencing a small, and it takes time, and we need to machazak ourselves, and we need to machazak one another. It's very easy to preach. Very easy to preach. The whole derech that I received was a derech of anava and shiflus, because that's where it has to come from. And it's not always easy, and we don't always understand it, and sometimes we mess up. And we hold it together. We hold it together. We have somebody that can turn to us, or we can turn to them. They can call us out, and they can hold us and say, thank you, I'm listening, I'm with you. Or to be cared for. I'm having a really bad day. Okay, I'm with you. But that's as well, not just the external, that's the internal. That's the conversations we want to create with the das, negotiating between neshama and nefesh. The nefesh is short term. The nefesh wants now. The nefesh can't sacrifice. The nefesh is like a little child. And there's myriads of personalities. There's so many different personalities within the nefesh. So many different personalities. It's really a lot to hold. There's personalities that reveal themselves. There's different voices and feelings that reveal themselves. But that's only the tip of the iceberg. How much is not revealed? And how many drivers are being pushed forward without you realizing? You're only hearing the end of the end of the end of the end voice in that layer of depth. While as well you have this horizontal. You've got this horizontal amount of revealed voices that we hear within. And it's very confusing. And it's not just my lifetime. If we don't want to go into the language of Gilgulim, because it's too intense for us, whether it's true, whether it's not true, DNA. Just take DNA. Maybe DNA is Gilgulim. I don't know. But DNA, we're holding so much, thousands of generations, or not really thousands, but hundreds. From hundreds of generations, probably you and I from Adam Rishon are about 146, 147, something like that. And we're holding a vertical layer of DNA. But then we've got this horizontal layers of DNA, which are thousands, hundreds of thousands. Parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents. Woo! All of that being held in your little you. And this is one reason Rav Weingott used to say, this is one reason why Rabbi Nachman would say to us, this is one reason why Rabbi Nachman the Tzaddik would say to us, Tzarich kol Adam lerachem ma'oid al basar haguf. And in Azamra, Rabbi Nachman says, see the positive within you, because it's so overwhelming. It's so overwhelming. And in our generation, in our dor, we are at the end. We are the greatest generation, Chevra. We're the greatest generation because we're holding all of that information. And the more we become Balei Das, the more we can shift out of the nefesh into the state of das that we're speaking about. And we're trying to give very, very practical maslul, a very, very straightforward and practical way to get there. I know that I make it complicated, so you have to own it. I'm trying to own it. We've spoken about exercises, which, again, we don't have to speak about exercise. This is the fact, as we said last week. I'm relating to my thoughts in the present moment, and I hear you, I've got rachamim on you, and I'm going to choose this. That alone is magnificent. You catch yourself once. That's magnificent. And these changes that we make, your redemption is our redemption, and our redemption is your redemption. We're all in this together, shifting from this vertical to a horizontal society. And it's an avodah. It's an avodah. It's an avodah. It's an avodah. And part of this process is critical thinking. That's part of our work here. Critically thinking. It's another shlav where we have a literate Hashem. Whereas by the Greeks and by Romans they had stories, by many other nations they had stories and myths and legends. We have a text and we read. We have Hashem, our Hashem is an alphabetical Hashem. That means we read and we write. We read and we write and we critically think. It's expected of us to critically think. It's expected of us to ask questions. It's expected to us to have dialogue. It's expected to us. That's what we need to make a horizontal society. That we're in it together, we can share. So we started a couple of weeks ago with a life lived from Da'at. And I'm hoping each time we're pushing and adding new ideas, and I'm hoping they're not too far away from what we can hold. Every single time, this is a new idea. Thank you for Reb Shimon, you won't mind me saying his name, for asking this question. But this is a very important hagdama, shifting and moving and shifting. We have a sophisticated Torah. Our consciousness needs to catch up. It's the same way as we live in a life today. We have all the gashmias. Look at this. When my grandfather came to Eretz Yisrael, Heilige Eretz Yisrael. When my grandfather came to Eretz Yisrael, thank you, Eretz Yisrael. Thank you to the ground of Eretz Yisrael. Shkoyach. When my grandfather came to Eretz Yisrael, what he would say I had, and my grandmother, what they would say they had to what we have today is Peladik. I remember driving with my great uncle, and we're driving up to Sfat, and I get emotional just thinking about it. My mother's father's brother. So we're driving up with my uncle to Sfat, and we passed a sign saying Sfat, and he started to cry. Passed a sign saying Sfat in Hebrew. And he said, because in Libya they had a Holocaust. But the Holocaust was affected in Libya as well. They had camps, I think, in Egypt. In Egypt as well? Didn't the Holocaust?
There were operations.
People don't realize by the Sfadim they were affected as well. The Libyans were affected. And he said, just to come here and see a sign in Hebrew saying Sfat, Peladik. So the shifts that are happening. We've got all of the technical side in place. We have all the technical side in place. We have all the technology. We have to catch up. And this is our catching up. We have to catch up. This is the shifts that have been spoken about by the Nevi'im since the beginning. We have to catch up. So we spoke about living life from a place of das. That should be a lot more experiential now. At least Not experiential, please don't get me wrong, as you're there, but experiential that you know how you work. And it's true to say there could be a frustration. That's your nefesh. Your nefesh is telling you, oh, you should know this, you should be further along. We know that. Okay, but that's not the way it works. Kapshuta, as we've described, sashkacha pratis. Then we spoke about this social coherent, where one person changing their state or a small group of people changing their state made a change in the community that they were in, not just in one place, but in multiple places. Multiple places. And since then, this was 1970s, there was a group in, each place had a group, and now they've done this thousands of times over. More than that, there's been certain books written, books on sociology, where they've gone into this derech of meditative, changing your state, living in a different state, and it affected the whole area around them, not once or twice. They've done this time and time again. I'm rambling a little bit now. I'm thinking I've got 3 different books that goes into the science of this. Very, very fascinating. So now we'll read this. Be'ezras Hashem, and this should be a bracha for Am Yisrael, that we have a way to move forward. We have a way to move forward, and we can, chevra. It's not easy, we can. We have to learn to be quiet. We have to learn to listen to what's going on inside, listen to what's going on outside. And Be'ezras Hashem, litchazek, always. Mitzvah gedola liyos b'simcha. Baruch Hashem, to be in a good state, to keep mitzvahs, b'kedusha, b'tahara, in a good way, and to try our best. That's it, to try our best. So our way of being as an individual affects the whole. What we can notice here is that one person's state of consciousness will collectively affect others. And getting groups of people to develop their state of consciousness will create social coherence. What we can suggest is these sorts of ideas are found within several sources. One source that comes to mind is Azamra in Likutei Maran, Part 1, Torah 282. We have, for example, teachings of the Baal Shem Tov in Bereshis 1:6-7, and the Bnei Saschar in Igrei Dekala, Parshas Vayetzer, relating to an individual raising their state of consciousness and an individual coming into their personalized redemption, affecting the whole. So this Nakuda, as we have said, is your redemption, is a global redemption. You work on yourself. And again, Chevra, please listen clearly. We're not setting the bar high. We're not setting the bar high. For God's sakes, we're not here to hurt ourselves. We're here to help ourselves. And as the Biala Rebbe, Zichron Livracha, the Heilige Biala Rebbe, the beautiful Biala Rebbe, one little shift. It could be that you put a smile on your face. Just even this. Doing this. That is one little shift. It could be a thought. One little thought. Gewaldig. It could be one little thought, just saying gewaldig. Gewaldig. It could be something so tiny. And whatever's tiny, find even something more tinier. Find something even more tinier. Biala Rebbe said repeatedly, never ever put somebody's one little shift down. Because you don't know how much energy it took for them to do that. So there could be a Yid who, I saw this with my own eyes, they'll come to the Rebbe, and this Yid came from a family that was semi-Shomer Torah mitzvahs, and he ended up going on his own journey. As the Rebbe said, he went on his own derech. People go off the derech, on the derech. There was no such thing by the Rebbe going off and on the derech. A person goes on their derech. So this Yid goes on their derech. And I remember, and I'm still in touch with this Yid today, when he started to go on his derech, I introduced him, I think maybe my father introduced him to the Rebbe. He's a few years older than me. He must be now close to 50s. He's a few years older. He's 4, 5, 6 years older. And he went to the Rebbe and he started to become a bit more distant from Yiddishkeit. And the Rebbe said to him, I remember this occurred in Stamford Hill in London, the Rebbe said to him, I can tell you something. I know that you're struggling, and I want you to know that in your struggle, you will think that I judge you. I want you to know that you have to be in touch with me all the time. I don't judge you, I love you, and whatever you do, you will do, I'm still supporting you. And for about a year and a half, this Yid wasn't in touch. And things got really bad. And I can't remember who it was, myself or if it was my father. One of us said, why don't you call the Rebbe? No, the Rebbe will say this and that. Come on. He ended up going to the Rebbe in Eretz Yisrael. And he went to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe told him off. The Rebbe told him off. He said to him, I'm very disappointed in you. I said to you one thing, and you believed your Yetzer Hara. You believed your Yetzer Hara. And he started to build a relationship with the Rebbe again. And Baruch Hashem, he found his way back. He's now married with kids. And he found his way back. And you speak to him, and it will always be this reality that the Rebbe's state of consciousness, the Rebbe was so centered, and the Rebbe constantly stuck to his guns, that one little shift is everything. One little shift, your geula is everyone's geula. And I remember this Yid told me that once he said, Rebbe, he says, I didn't smoke on Shabbos. And the Rebbe turned and he started to cry. He says, I felt so happy over Shabbos. I knew a miracle happened. I knew something happened. And he said, but Rebbe, no, sorry. Bechila. He said, I didn't smoke Friday night. I didn't smoke. I smoked daytime. I didn't smoke Friday night. And the Rebbe started to cry and he says, I felt so much besimcha. I knew a miracle happened. And he said, but I smoked on Shabbos. He says, it doesn't matter. That one little, even if it was a hirhur, that is everything. He says, do I know what's going on in your heart? How much struggle it was even to have that idea? And the Rebbe had a high, and Mamash had high expectations of his Hasidim, of his Talmidim. He has high expectations. It's not that you could do what you want and it's a free-for-all. It's the fact that the Rebbe understands the human nature. And it's not always easy. It's not always easy. And where you are, you have to have on yourself, to the best of your ability, in a healthy way, the highest expectations. Torah, mitzvah, kedusha, tahara. But my redemption is your redemption is my redemption, and your redemption can be, mamash, a thought amongst all the noise. And that's Geula. And these ideas may sound a little bit foreign to us, but these were the ideas that I was brought up on. If I wasn't, I wouldn't be here now, I can tell you that. If it wasn't for my parents with these ideas and the Rebbe, I wouldn't be here right now. I can assure you of that. Gepshutai. So likewise, we're told by Reb Tzadok HaKohen, likewise, you're page 24?
Yeah.
Likewise, we are, just start me off.
Like Rabbi Rav Kook.
Thank you. Likewise, we're told by Rav Kook that a tzaddik walking around his home, immersed in contemplation, searching for truth, even when their thoughts cannot be put into words, they help many souls. An individual's redemption is a national redemption. So what Rav Kook here is speaking about in the Kvatzim and in Pinkas is speaking about how somebody, you and I, maybe we may be walking around and we feel a feeling and we can't put it in words. So on a certain respect, they could be very, very high feelings and they don't need to be put in words. But that itself, those feelings, walking around with that intense, whatever it is, you are helping the whole nation. No, Pum Fakir, not Jewish guilt. No, not Jewish. You could be having a hargasha, a good hargasha, not Jewish guilt. But we're not saying Jewish guilt is bad. Jewish guilt, there's a difference between, I ask the question, we have this term Jewish guilt. Guilt and shame are very, very powerful tools. They were given to us after Adam and Chava, after Adam ate from the tree. That's when guilt and shame was given to us. And guilt and shame are very, very powerful tools, not when they become toxic guilt and shame. Toxic guilt and shame and nishgit, they're not good for us. I always wonder when people say Jewish guilt, is Jewish guilt toxic guilt and shame? I don't know. I remember my grandmother speaking about Jewish guilt and the way she spoke about Jewish guilt, I questioned her on it. Does that Jewish guilt stop you from moving forward? And she said to me that she heard from her brother, Reb Chaim Solomon, a Goy Noilam. He said that Jewish guilt is what moves us along. Ashrei Hadam, he quoted, which I later realized, Ashrei Adam shemefached tamid, the Sugi en Gittin, 55, the Sugi en Gittin. Ashrei Adam shemefached tamid is Jewish guilt. That I'm careful. So I wonder, when people typically say Jewish guilt, I don't think it's toxic shame and guilt. I think it's a guilt that we again are a nation of responsibility.
It's like institutionalized guilt.
Yeah, we have high standards upon ourselves.
So is that the contemplating that is being spoken of?
No, I think Rav Kook here is speaking about good thoughts. Thoughts of Torah, critical thinking.
Immersed in contemplating, searching for truth.
Yes, I think it's good, not bad.
Doesn't get triggered by a feel like, oh my, I'm not good. I'm like, I went that way. It's like,
Interesting. Okay, you're bringing something up.
So far away. How can I get closer?
Interesting. So I never read it like that. You're bringing up a point where maybe what Rav Kook's speaking about is this notion of like, how have I moved further away from truth? It could be. It could be. I don't know. But okay, Beseder. Rabbi Yeshua Pinchasi, a student of the Sandlar, and Rav Ashlag, a tzaddik from Bnei Brak, who was nifter about 2004, declared and explained that a person grows and lives a good, healthy, and decent Torah life, that a person is channeling, changing their family and their community for the good without them even knowing, not just on a physical plane, on a much deeper level of our reality, beyond a given person and their family. It is changing all things. As the Sasva Rebbe has said in the name of the Heilige Zeder of Naftali Ropshitzer, a change anywhere is a change everywhere. So what we're saying here is that our way of being as an individual is affecting everything. And it's true to say, sometimes we can feel pressure. We can feel tremendous pressure. Obviously, my nefesh is right now calling out as well. I didn't put this in here. I could put a lot of Maramakomis here. The Nefesh HaChaim speaks about this and others. Thank you, Nefesh. But the point that we're trying to say is that be encouraged. Be positive. Remember our tikkun hod, our tikkun of hod, netzach and yisod. Hod, to be thankful. To be thankful. That's where we should be always, to be so thankful. Akaras hatov, ay Rabbeinu Shalom. Thankful that I could be here in Eretz Yisrael, Kedushas Haaretz. Thankful I can be here. Everything. I've got clothes on my back. Thank you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that we're coming to the end of Shiur today, and I'm feeling it a little bit. But Baruch Hashem, thank you for allowing me to be a kli, to share these words. I'm hoping deeply they're useful. Thank you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Just thank you. The more you live with conscious gratitude, the more we start to experience netzach, hope and optimism. We become more hopeful and optimistic. Again, hundreds and hundreds of makairos to back this up. And the birth of this love union of gratitude and optimism, hod and netzach, is yesod resilience. The nation of hope, the nation of gratitude, the nation of resilience. That's who we are. And how does it start? With a beautiful individual just trying. With a beautiful individual simply just trying. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu chaps how we work. We have to chap how we work. And it's true to say, when we learn the Sfarim HaKadoshim, we're giving a shiur right now to a small chabura. They wanted to learn Rav Arla. And Rav Arla can be quite harsh. But I met students of Rav Arla. I met people, his son, and he said he was Rav Arla Rot of Shoy Memunim. And I was close to his son for many, many years. He was nifter a number of years ago, lived in Bnei Brak. And he says, my father was so loving. Doesn't always come out in the Sfarim. Okay, that's the nature of books. That's the nature of when we put words to pages. That's the black letters. But we have to remember that the black letters are written on white. That white is kula ahava. That white is kula ahava. And what we want to understand, Kipshuta, I'm hoping. Again, here are black words on white pages. The white I'm trying to share with you. The beginning of what we shared today and the end of what I'm sharing, that one small change, one good thought about yourself, one good thought about somebody else, one good thought about our nation. That is shifting from exile within exile to redemption within exile. One good thought. And your redemption is my redemption. My redemption is your redemption. So let's gift each other all the time. Let's gift each other. Let's gift ourselves redemption. Let's gift each other redemption. And changing and shifting, moving from, now I'm going to use words that we went against before, moving from, so to speak, being stuck in my nefesh, elevating and becoming more, so to speak, vertical, naran, neshama, ruach, nefesh, more vertical and more aligned. That's going to qualitatively impact our horizontal society. Be'ezras Hashem. And I am, let's just, okay, it's 56. We'll carry on next week from a nation affecting the whole. And I'm hoping, what we'll do now is we'll spend a moment, please, Chevra, we'll spend a moment. What did you hear today? What did you hear today? What spoke to you? What spoke to you? What helped uplift your life? And allow it to absorb. Allow it to absorb. You deserve it. Gift yourself. Gift yourself. And with everyone here, we'll break up in a minute and we'll share. And to take a moment, just before we switch off the cameras, just take a moment. What's one thing that you have heard today that you can think about, even for 10 seconds, 5 seconds? And I just want to ask, are there any questions that have come up, just that we want to ask now? Any questions?
I have a lot of questions. Usually I ask after.
We'll ask them afterwards, okay? Any other questions that would like to, anything that wants to be, that you've observed? Okay. Yeah? Beseder tov l'chaim tovim u'l'shalom bracha, mazel and hatzlacha.